The silence in the war room lasted for nearly a minute after the broadcast ended. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. They simply processed what they'd just learned about themselves. Emperor Dagon was the first to break the silence. "Get those files. I want to verify." "They're already verified, Your Majesty," Hyejin interrupted quietly. When everyone turned to stare at her, she took a deep breath. "I'm part of a group, historians. We've been keeping the real records for decades. Everything that Captain showed you is true." The Emperor's face went pale, then red with anger. "You've been hiding information from the Empire, from me?" "We've been preserving truth," Hyejin replied, her voice stronger now. "Every generation your advisors have deleted more history, classified more files, rewritten more textbooks. We saved what we could, waited for the right moment to reveal it. And you decided that moment was when aliens humiliated us in front of the entire galaxy?" "I didn't decide anything," Hyejin said. "They did? They found our hidden archives somehow. They knew exactly where to look. Captain Suho had found them because humanity had been watching the Veltharian Empire for over a century. Human observation posts hidden throughout the sector had recorded everything. They'd intercepted communications, copied databases, documented every conquest. They knew where the real histories were kept because they'd watched the historians hide them." In her small apartment across the city, Yuna sat on her couch with Minho beside her. Neither had gone home after leaving the palace. They'd come here together, both too shocked to be alone. The broadcast played on repeat on every news channel. People were already analyzing it, debating it, questioning everything. "I spent 5 years lying," Yuna said softly. "Every story I reported, every celebration I covered. All lies. You didn't know." Minho tried to comfort her. "I should have known. I'm a journalist. Finding truth is literally my job, and I just repeated whatever they told me to say." She wiped her eyes angrily. "All those unity celebrations, those were victory parades. We were celebrating conquest, celebrating the destruction of other civilizations." Her personal communicator chimed. Messages were flooding in. Other journalists asking for interviews. Government officials demanding she stay quiet. Citizens asking if the broadcasts were real. She ignored them all except one. It was from a viewer on one of the conquered worlds, a member of a species called the Telvin. The message was short. "Thank you for showing your people the truth. Maybe now they'll see us as more than property." Yuna felt physically ill. She'd reported on the Telvin integration into the Empire. She'd called it a success story. She'd interviewed Veltharian officials who spoke about civilizing them, educating them, raising them up. She'd never thought to interview the Telvin themselves. Never asked if they wanted to be integrated. She made a decision that would change her life. "Minho, get your camera." "What? Why?" "Because we're going to do our jobs properly for once. Real journalism. Real truth." She stood up, energy returning. "If humanity can show us who we really are, the least we can do is make sure everyone sees it clearly." Within hours, Yuna began a new broadcast series. She didn't ask permission. She used her credentials to access public networks and started telling stories that had never been told before. She interviewed citizens from conquered worlds. She showed footage that had been classified. She read from the historical documents that Hyejin's group had preserved. Other journalists joined her. Young ones mostly, who felt betrayed by the lies they'd been taught. But some older journalists too who'd suspected the truth, but had been too afraid to investigate. The Empire's communication networks became flooded with debate. The telepathic network, which usually unified Veltharian thought, became chaotic with conflicting emotions. Some people refused to believe the revelations. They insisted it was alien propaganda. But many more started asking questions they'd never asked before. In the military, the response was mixed. Older officers like Admiral Jamin had known the truth all along, even if they'd justified it to themselves. Younger officers felt betrayed. A decorated pilot named Nari made a video that went viral across the Empire. "I joined the military to protect our people," she said into the camera, still wearing her flight suit. "I believed we were making the galaxy safer. I trusted that our leaders were honest about our missions. Now I learn that I've been used. That every battle I fought was about conquest, not defense. When did protecting ourselves become destroying others?" Her words resonated with thousands of young military personnel who genuinely believed they were serving a noble cause. On the Tai Hyun, Captain Suho watched the Veltharian networks with careful attention. His science officer, Lieutenant Do-hyun, provided analysis every few hours. Public opinion is shifting rapidly, Do-hyun reported. The telepathic network is actually helping spread truth faster than we expected. Once enough individuals start questioning, others feel it and question too. What about the government? Commander Bora asked. Divided, Emperor Dagon wants to suppress everything, maintain control. But several of his advisors are pushing for reform, some even suggesting he step down. Suho nodded thoughtfully. We gave them truth. Now we see if they have the courage to act on it. 3 days after the broadcast, something unprecedented happened. Several planets in the outer regions of the Empire held public assemblies, not government-organized events, genuine grassroots gatherings where citizens demanded answers from their leaders. On Velthar itself, protests began in the capital plaza, where Yuna had been broadcasting when the Taehyun first appeared. Thousands gathered, holding signs demanding truth and reform. The Emperor ordered them dispersed, but the local security forces refused. Too many of them had family members at the protests. Emperor Dagon called another emergency session. The war room was tense. He looked older than he had just days before, the stress showing on his face. We need to regain control, he said firmly. This chaos cannot continue. Control? One advisor challenged. Your Majesty, we've lost the moral authority to control. The people know what we've done. They know we've been lying to them. Then we tell them it was necessary. We show them our strength, remind them why the Empire exists. They've seen our strength, Admiral Jamin said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. They watched a single alien ship humiliate 300 of our warships. Strength doesn't mean what we thought it meant. Dagon slammed his fist on the table. What would you have me do? Surrender our empire? Bow to these humans? I would have you make a choice, came a new voice. Every screen in the room activated simultaneously. Captain Suho appeared, uninvited but impossible to block. Emperor Dagon, your people are already making their choice. They're choosing truth over lies, growth over stagnation. The question is whether you'll lead them through this change or try to stand in their way. You have no right to— I have every right, Suho interrupted calmly, because I'm the one with a fleet of ships that makes yours look like children's toys. Because I represent a species that's been watching your empire destroy innocent worlds, but more importantly, because your own people are asking for this. He leaned forward. We don't want your surrender. We don't want your territory. We want you to be better, and we're going to give you a chance to prove you can be. What kind of chance? Tegan asked warily. The 3 systems you most recently conquered, the ones celebrating at your Unity Festival. You're going to give them a choice. A real choice. They can remain in your empire with full autonomy and equal representation, or they can leave with reparations for the damage you've caused. That's insane. We can't just— You can, Suho said firmly. And you will. Because it's the first step toward redemption, toward becoming the people you were before fear made you cruel. The connection ended before Dagon could respond. In her apartment, Yuna watched the exchange with millions of others. Minyo turned to her. Do you think we can change? Really change? Yuna thought about the Telvin message, about the lies she'd told, about the pilot Nari in her viral video, about all the young people across the Empire questioning everything they'd been taught. I don't know, she admitted, but I know we have to try. Admiral Jamin stared at his tactical display with growing disbelief. Every weapon his fleet had fired was gone. Not destroyed, not deflected, simply erased from existence as if they'd never been there at all. 300 years of military experience had prepared him for many things. This was not one of them. Status report, he demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. All weapon systems still operational, sir, his tactical officer reported. No damage to any ship. The alien vessel didn't fire back. It just stopped our attack. On the bridge of the Taehyun, Lieutenant Hana worked at her station with calm precision. She was young for a weapons officer, barely 30, but Captain Suho had handpicked her for this mission. Not because she was aggressive, because she was precise. Package Delta 7 is ready. Captain, she reported. Suho nodded to Commander Bora. Execute. What happened next would be discussed in military academies across the galaxy for decades to come. The Taehyun didn't fire weapons. It didn't need to. Instead, it did something far more frightening. It demonstrated perfect control. Aboard the Veltharian flagship, Admiral Jamin watched in horror as his weapon systems simply shut down. All of them, simultaneously. Every beam cannon, every missile launcher, every torpedo tube, all went dark at exactly the same instant. His comm channels exploded with reports from other ships. The same thing was happening across the entire fleet. 300 warships all losing their weapons at once. "Get them back online," Jamin shouted. "We're trying, sir. But it's not a malfunction. Something is controlling our systems. It's coming from..." The weapons came back online, then shut down again. Online, offline, online, offline. On and off like light switches, every weapon in the fleet cycling in perfect synchronization. The alien ship was playing with them, showing them that it could reach into their most secure systems, past all their encryptions and security protocols, and simply do whatever it wanted. In the war room on the planet, Emperor Dagon watched his mighty fleet being humiliated. One ship, a single alien vessel, was treating 300 warships like toys. "How is this possible?" someone whispered. Hyejin spoke up again, her voice shaking slightly. "They're inside our systems. All of them. They've broken every encryption we have, and they're showing us they can control our ships better than we can. Cut all external connections," an advisor shouted. "Isolate every system." It made no difference. The weapons continued their on-off cycle. The alien ship wasn't using their networks. It was doing something else, something the Veltharians couldn't even understand, let alone block. Finally, after 30 seconds that felt like hours, the cycling stopped. All weapons came back online and stayed online. The fleet had full control again. A message appeared on Admiral Jamin's screen. Simple, direct, terrifying in its casual tone. "Message received." The Admiral's hand shook as he replied. "Yes. Good. Now about why we're really here." Captain Suho stood from his command chair. What came next would be difficult but necessary. The Veltharians needed to understand not just that they were outmatched, but why humanity had come. They needed to see themselves clearly. "Open a channel," Suho ordered. "All frequencies. Every screen in the Empire." Within seconds, his face appeared on billions of displays across 40 star systems. Yuna, still in the war room, saw him for the first time. He looked human, or close enough. 2 eyes, hair, similar features. But there was something in his expression. Something ancient and sad. "People of the Veltharian Empire," Suho began. "My name is Captain Suho of the United Earth Naval Exploration Service. Ship Taehyun. We come from a species called humanity, and we've been watching you for a long time." Murmurs spread through the war room. Earth, humanity? These names meant nothing to them. No records of this species existed in their databases. "We remained hidden," Suho continued, "not because we feared you, but because we learned long ago that revealing ourselves often causes more harm than good. We watch, we observe, we intervene only when necessary." He paused, and his expression hardened. "Your expansion has made intervention necessary." A new holographic display appeared, visible to everyone watching. It showed star maps, trajectory paths, projections. "Your empire is expanding toward a cluster of 7 star systems. Those systems contain pre-industrial civilizations, species that have not yet developed space travel, species that cannot defend themselves against you." Suho's eyes seemed to look directly at each viewer. "We have been protecting those systems for decades, and we will not allow you to conquer them." Emperor Dagon felt anger rising. "How dare you judge us? You know nothing of..." But Suho wasn't finished. "We know everything about you, your entire history, and we know something you've forgotten." What appeared next shocked the Empire to its core. Old files, ancient records, documents that had been buried, classified, hidden away by generations of emperors. The truth about Veltharian history. Yuna watched the screens with growing horror. Images of her people from 500 years ago. A different Velthar, a planet under attack by another species called the Korath. Cities burning, millions dying, her people fighting desperately, not as conquerors but as victims. 5 centuries ago, Suho narrated, the Veltharians were nearly enslaved by the Korath Empire. You fought back against impossible odds. You won by sheer determination and luck. In that moment, your people swore an oath, never again would you be victims. More images appeared. The immediate aftermath of the war. Veltharian leaders vowing to become strong, to build a military that could never be defeated, to expand and grow so that no one could ever threaten them again. But somewhere along the way, Suho said softly, never be victims became always be victors. Self-defense became conquest. Protection became domination. You became the very thing you once fought against. The war room was silent. Yuna felt tears on her face. She'd studied history in school, but never this. The curriculum taught that Veltharians had always been strong, always been united, always been destined to lead lesser species. It was all lies. Suho showed more records. The 3 systems celebrating at the Unity Festival. But now he showed the real footage. Veltharian warships bombarding cities, ground troops forcing surrender, populations displaced, cultures erased, millions dead across 3 star systems. These worlds didn't join willingly, Suho stated. They were conquered. Their people were given a choice, submit or die. Most submitted. Many still died. Admiral Jamin wanted to argue, to deny it, but he couldn't. He'd been there. He'd led some of those campaigns. He'd told himself it was necessary, that it was making the galaxy better. Looking at the footage now, seeing it presented so starkly, he felt sick. You have a choice, Suho told the Empire. Continue as you are and humanity will stop you. We will dismantle your fleet. We will occupy your worlds. We will remove your ability to harm others, not because we want to conquer you, but because we must protect those who cannot protect themselves. He leaned forward, and his expression softened slightly. Or you can remember who you were before fear took over. You can choose to be better, to be the people you were before the trauma twisted your purpose. Emperor Dagon found his voice. You ask us to just give up everything we've built? Our empire? Our strength? I ask you to give up your cruelty, Suho replied. Your strength can remain. Use it to protect instead of conquer. Use it to help instead of harm. Show the galaxy that empires can change, that fear doesn't have to define you forever. The broadcast ended. Suho's face disappeared from the screens. But his words remained, echoing through the minds of billions of Veltharians who suddenly saw themselves clearly for the first time in centuries. In the war room, Yuna looked at the Emperor, at the advisors, at the military commanders. They all looked lost. Everything they believed about themselves had been shattered in minutes. Outside in cities across the Empire, people began talking, arguing, questioning. The careful propaganda that had sustained the Empire for centuries was cracking under the weight of revealed truth. And above them all, the dark ship waited silently, giving them time to decide. The Imperial Palace occupied the highest point in the capital city. Its walls had stood for 1,000 years, built when the Veltharians were still one nation on one planet. Now it served as the center of an empire spanning 40 star systems. Emperor Dagon had ruled from this palace for over 2 centuries, and in all that time he had never felt what he felt now. Uncertainty. The war room was filled with his top advisors, military commanders, intelligence officers, diplomatic specialists. All of them stared at the holographic display showing the alien ship in orbit. Their most powerful sensors hid its hull and simply stopped working. Their weapons systems couldn't get a solid lock. Every attempt to scan its interior came back with nonsense data. It's like it's not fully in our reality, one scientist said nervously. The sensors say it's there, but also not there. The readings make no sense. Admiral Jamin, commander of the Imperial fleet, stood with his arms crossed. He was old, even, by Veltharian standards, with 300 years of military service. Whatever it is, it's alone. One ship against our entire fleet, we could... Could what? Emperor Dagon interrupted. We can't even scan it properly. How do you propose destroying something you can't understand? The Admiral had no answer for that. A messenger entered the room quickly. Your Majesty, the journalist who first filmed the ship, Yuna and her crew, they're here as requested. Dagon nodded. Bring them in. Yuna walked into the war room feeling completely out of place. She was a civilian, a reporter. This room was for military leaders and government officials. Minho walked beside her, looking equally nervous. Hyejin came too, though she seemed less surprised to be here. Tell me everything you saw, the Emperor commanded. Every detail. Yuna described the moment the ship appeared, the way space seemed to fold, the feeling through the telepathic network. the absolute wrongness of something that their minds couldn't touch. It felt intelligent, she finished. Not like a machine. More like it was alive but so alien that we can't understand it. One of the military advisors leaned forward. Or whoever's controlling it has mental shields stronger than anything we've encountered. High above, on the bridge of the Taihyun, Commander Bora studied the Veltharian communication attempts. They'd sent hundreds of messages in the last 3 hours, demands for identification, requests for peaceful dialogue, threats, bargaining, every type of first contact protocol. All of them shared one underlying message: tell us where your homeworld is. Tell us your military strength. Tell us your intentions. They think like conquerors, Bora observed. Even when trying to be diplomatic. Captain Suho sat in his command chair, fingers pressed together thoughtfully. They've been the dominant power in this sector for centuries. They've forgotten what it's like to be uncertain, to be afraid. Should we respond, sir? Suho checked the chronometer. Yes, but keep it simple. The message was composed carefully. It would be transmitted in perfect Veltharian language, using phrases and grammar that showed complete understanding of their culture. That detail alone would frighten them more than any weapon. Down on Velthar, Emperor Deegan was in the middle of a heated discussion with his advisors when every screen in the war room lit up simultaneously. The alien ship was broadcasting. The message appeared in text form, in flawless Veltharian script. We are here to observe. We advise you continue your celebrations. The room went silent. That was it. No identification, no explanation, no negotiation, just a casual dismissal that treated the entire Veltharian Empire like children playing games. Admiral Jaimin's face darkened with anger. This is an insult. They enter our space without permission, refuse to identify themselves, and then mock us. They want us to know they understand our language perfectly, Hyejin said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She swallowed nervously but continued. Think about it. They could have sent gibberish. They could have tried to communicate in simple terms. Instead, they used perfect grammar, proper formal address. They're showing us they've already learned everything about our language and culture. In 3 hours? One advisor scoffed. Maybe less, Hyejin replied. We don't know how long they were watching before they appeared. Emperor Dagon felt cold. If they'd been watching, if they'd been learning, then what else did they know? He made his decision. Admiral Jaimin, I want that ship removed from orbit, escorted to the edge of our territory. Use the fleet if necessary. Your Majesty, is that wise? Someone asked. We don't know their capabilities. They're alone, Dagon said firmly. One ship. We have 300 vessels in orbit right now. Show them that the Veltharian Empire does not tolerate disrespect. Yuna watched the discussion with growing horror. She wanted to speak up, to say that maybe this was a terrible idea. But she was just a journalist. Nobody would listen to her. Admiral Jamin began giving orders. Within the hour, the entire orbital defense fleet began moving into position around the alien ship. 300 warships, each one powerful enough to destroy a small moon. They formed a sphere around the dark vessel, weapons powered and ready. The Admiral opened a communication channel. Unknown vessel, you are in violation of Imperial space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. On the Taihyun's bridge, Captain Suho listened to the demand. He looked tired suddenly, older than his years. They chose the hard way. Sir? Bora asked. I gave them a chance, a simple message saying we were only here to observe. They could have waited, could have tried actual diplomacy. Instead, they go straight to military force. He sighed deeply. Bora, prepare first contact package Delta 7. Commander Bora hesitated. Sir, that's the intimidation protocol. It's designed to show them exactly how outmatched they are without killing anyone. Suho finished. Yes. Better they learn now than after people die. He opened a return channel to the Veltharian fleet. Admiral Jamin, and yes, we know your name, your service record, and what you had for breakfast. I'm going to give you one opportunity to withdraw. What happens next is not an attack. It's a lesson. Your choice whether you stay for it. Down on the planet, millions watched on their screens as the Admiral's face went pale. How did they know his name? His breakfast? What else did they know? Jamin's pride wouldn't let him back down, not in front of the entire Empire. All ships, he commanded. Open fire. 300 warships unleashed their weapons at once. Energy beams turned space bright. Missiles streaked toward the dark ship. Exotic matter torpedoes, weapons that could tear apart the fabric of space itself, converged on the target. It was enough firepower to destroy a dozen planets. The alien ship didn't move, didn't activate shields, didn't try to escape. The weapons simply stopped, frozen in space around the ship, suspended mid-flight as if time itself had stopped. Hundreds of deadly weapons just hanging there, unable to move forward. Then one by one, each weapon dissolved into harmless particles. No explosion, no energy release. They just quietly ceased to exist. In the war room, Emperor Dagon stared at the screen in complete silence. Around him, his advisors couldn't speak, couldn't think. What kind of power could do that? The answer came quickly and was far more terrifying than any attack could have been. The sun hung high over the capital city of Velthar, casting bright light across the massive plaza where thousands had gathered. Yuna stood in the center of it all, her camera crew positioned around her as holographic displays flickered to life behind her. She smoothed down her blue jacket and smiled at the main camera. This was her favorite part of the job. "Good afternoon, citizens of the Empire," she began, her voice confident and warm. "I'm standing here at the Unity Festival, where we celebrate another year of growth and prosperity. Behind me, you can see the latest additions to our great empire." The holographic screen showed 3 star systems, each one rotating slowly. Ships moved between planets. Cities glowed on the surfaces of dozens of worlds. It looked peaceful. It looked perfect. Yuna had been a broadcast journalist for 5 years now. She loved telling stories about the Empire's success. Every week brought news of new worlds joining them, new species accepting the benefits of Veltharian civilization. Her mentor, Hyejin, always said that good journalism meant showing people the truth. Yuna believed she was doing exactly that. "The 3 systems you see joined us willingly," Yuna continued, reading from her prepared script. "They recognize the strength and wisdom of Veltharian leadership. Together, we are building a future where—" She stopped. Something felt wrong. The Veltharians possessed a gift that made them special among the galaxy species. They could sense each other's minds, feel emotions across distances, share thoughts when needed. It connected them all, made them one people. Right now, that connection screamed a warning that made Yuna's blood run cold. The crowd around her went silent. Thousands of people stopped moving at exactly the same moment. They all felt it too. Yuna looked up at the sky. Her mouth was still open from her interrupted sentence. The words died in her throat. Above the city, space itself seemed to tear open, not like the normal shimmer of ships arriving through hyperspace. This was different. Reality folded like paper, and through that fold something emerged. A ship, but calling it just a ship felt wrong. It was massive, easily 3 kilometers long, shaped like a blade made of darkness. The hull was black, so black it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange patterns covered its surface, geometric designs that hurt to look at directly because they appeared to shift and move. The ship took position in high orbit and simply stopped. It didn't drift. It didn't maneuver. It hung there as if space itself was holding it up. Yuna's camera operator, Minho, stood frozen beside her. His camera had automatically followed her gaze and was now pointed at the sky. The live broadcast was showing the alien ship to billions of viewers across the Empire. "What?" Minho whispered. "What is that?" Yuna couldn't answer. Through her telepathic senses, she felt the minds of everyone on the planet reaching out, trying to touch the ship, trying to understand what it was. The Veltharians could sense the minds of most living things. It was how they knew when other species were ready to join the Empire, how they negotiated, how they maintained control. But this ship, this presence, it was like reaching out to touch something and finding nothing there. Not emptiness, not silence, something worse. It was like the ship existed outside the normal rules of reality. Their telepathic senses slid off it like water off glass. For the first time in 300 years, since the Veltharian Empire had begun its expansion, they faced something they could not understand. something they could not touch with their minds, something they could not control. Fear spread through the telepathic network like fire through dry grass. Yuna found her voice, though it shook. Citizens of the Empire, we have an unexpected development. An unknown vessel has appeared in orbit above our capital world. She tried to sound professional, tried to sound calm, but even through the camera, viewers could see her hands trembling. They could feel her fear through the telepathic network. Above the planet, the ship remained motionless. It made no attempt to communicate. It didn't move closer or further away. It simply watched. That's what made it so terrifying. The patience, the complete stillness, like a predator that had no need to rush because it knew its prey had nowhere to run. Within minutes, military vehicles began appearing in the streets. The celebration in the plaza broke apart as people hurried home or to shelters. Yuna's producer was screaming in her earpiece to keep filming, to keep broadcasting. This was the biggest story in the Empire's history. Yejin pushed through the scattering crowd to reach Yuna. Her mentor's face was pale, her usually calm expression replaced with something Yuna had never seen before. Fear. Deep, genuine fear. We need to go, Yejin said urgently. They're evacuating all non-essential personnel from the capital. I can't leave, Yuna protested. I'm a journalist. This is first contact with something unknown, Yejin interrupted. And looking at that ship, I don't think it's here to talk. High above, the black ship continued its silent vigil. Deep inside its hull in chambers Veltharian sensors could not penetrate, systems older and more advanced than anything in this sector of space began their work. The ship was scanning, learning, analyzing. It was learning about the Veltharian Empire, about their history, their technology, their society. It was reading their communications, breaking their encryptions, understanding their language, and most importantly, it was learning about the 3-star systems displayed so proudly on those holographic screens, the systems that had supposedly joined willingly. The ship was reading the real records, the buried ones, the truths that the Empire had hidden away. Captain Suho stood on the bridge of his ship, the Yunes Taehyun, named after humanity's first deep space explorer. He watched the data scroll across his screens. Behind him, his crew worked in quiet efficiency. They'd done this before, though not often. Humanity rarely revealed itself, sir, Commander Bora said softly. We've confirmed it. The 3 systems were conquered, not liberated. Civilian casualties in the millions. Suho nodded slowly. He'd expected as much. The galaxy was full of empires like this one, species that grew strong and then mistook strength for righteousness. They weren't evil, not really. Just convinced of their own superiority. They're trying to contact us, Bora continued, demanding we identify ourselves. They're using very aggressive language. Let them wait, Suho replied. For now, we watch. On the planet below, Yuna stood in the emptying plaza, her camera still recording the dark ship above. She didn't know it yet, but her entire world was about to change. Everything she believed, everything she'd reported, everything she thought she knew about her people, it would all be challenged in the days to come. The alien ship had appeared, and nothing would ever be the same. Emperor Dagon stared at the proposal displayed on his screen. Give the conquered worlds a choice. The idea seemed impossible. Empires didn't give away territory. They didn't admit mistakes. They definitely didn't offer reparations to those they'd conquered. Yet the alternative was clear. The human ship still hung in orbit above Velthar. More concerning, intelligence reports suggested there might be other human vessels scattered throughout the sector, hidden, watching. Humanity had technology centuries beyond anything the Veltharians possessed. If Dagon refused, humanity would likely make good on their threat. They would dismantle the Empire by force. And given what they'd already demonstrated, the Veltharian military would be helpless to stop them. But there was another pressure building, one he hadn't expected. His own people. The protests continued growing. Not just in the capital, but across dozens of worlds. Citizens demanding reform, young military officers publicly questioning orders, journalists like Yuna broadcasting truth that couldn't be suppressed. The telepathic network that had once unified the Empire in shared purpose now carried shared doubt, shared guilt, shared desire for change. Your Majesty, one of his newer advisors spoke carefully. Perhaps this is an opportunity rather than a defeat. An opportunity? Dagon laughed bitterly. To destroy everything we've built? To rebuild it into something better? Something sustainable? The advisor pulled up statistics. Our expansion has been slowing for years. The outer systems require constant military presence to maintain control. The cost of occupation grows every year. Meanwhile, resentment builds in the conquered populations. We've been holding an empire together through force, and it's been getting harder. Admiral Jamin added his voice. The troops know it too. Morale has been declining. They joined to protect Velthar, not to occupy hostile worlds. Every year we lose more soldiers, not to combat but to mental health issues. Guilt, depression, the things they've had to do. Dagon looked around the room. More of his advisors nodded agreement. When had they all started thinking like this? Or had they always thought it but been too afraid to speak until now? If I do this, he said slowly, if I offer them choice and they leave, it will make us look weak. Other systems might rebel. Or, Hyejin suggested gently, it might show them we've changed. That the Empire is becoming something they might want to be part of voluntarily. It took Emperor Dagon 3 more days to make his decision. 3 days of protests, debates, sleepless nights. Finally, he made an announcement to the Empire. We have made mistakes, he admitted, the words painful. In our fear of becoming victims again, we became something we should never have been. Therefore, the 3 systems most recently brought into the Empire will be given a choice. True choice. Remain with full autonomy and representation, or leave with our support for their rebuilding. The announcement shocked the galaxy. Several of Dagon's oldest advisors resigned in protest. Some military officers refused to accept it, but more surprising were those who supported it. Nari, the pilot, enlisted other young officers to help organize the referendum process. Yuna used her platform to broadcast fair information about both options to the 3 systems. Captain Suho received the announcement aboard the Taihyun. Commander Bora looked satisfied. They're actually doing it. The first step, Suho cautioned. The hard part comes next. Actually following through. He was right to be cautious. The referendum process was messy. Groups within the Veltharian government tried to manipulate it. Some sent military forces to the 3 systems to intimidate voters. When Suho learned of this, he sent a simple message. Remove your troops or we will remove them for you. The troops withdrew. Human observers arrived to ensure fairness. Not soldiers, but civilians, diplomats and election monitors who'd done this work on dozens of worlds. They were efficient, polite, and absolutely firm about proper procedures. Yuna traveled to all 3 systems to report on the referendums. It was the first time she'd actually visited worlds beyond Velthar. The first time she'd really seen what conquest looked like from the other side. On the first world, she interviewed a Telvan elder, whose city had been bombed during the initial invasion. He showed her ruins that had never been rebuilt. Memorial walls with thousands of names of those who'd died. Will you vote to stay or leave? Yuna asked, her camera recording. The elder looked at her thoughtfully. I don't know yet. Staying means access to Veltharian technology and trade. Leaving means freedom but uncertainty. It's not a simple choice. I'm sorry, Yuna said quietly, for what we did to you. For what I helped justify by not reporting the truth. You're reporting it now, the elder replied. That matters. The referendums took place over 2 weeks. The results surprised many. The first system voted to leave, choosing independence despite the economic hardship it would bring. The second system also voted to leave, but the third system, the most recently conquered, voted to stay. By a narrow margin, but they voted to stay. Emperor Dagon didn't know whether to be relieved or ashamed that only one chose to remain. Yuna interviewed voters in that third system, trying to understand. A young mother explained, We see that Velthar is changing. The old empire conquered us. This new empire is offering partnership. We want to help build it into something better, but we're staying with conditions. Real representation, real autonomy. If they break these promises, we can hold another referendum. The practical work of separation began. The 2 systems that voted for independence needed help establishing their own governments, their own defense forces, their own economies. To everyone's surprise, Emperor Dagon authorized significant reparations, resources, technology, even military equipment for self-defense. Why? Admiral Jamin asked him privately. We could give less. Save face. Because giving less would prove we haven't really changed, Dagon replied tiredly. And because maybe if we help them succeed, They'll remember we can be better than we were. Aboard the Taehyun, Lieutenant Do-hyun provided Captain Suho with updated analysis. The Empire is transforming faster than projected. Multiple worlds are demanding reforms. The Emperor is losing power to a growing democratic movement. Is he resisting? Suho asked. No, sir. He seems to be letting it happen, almost encouraging it. Commander Bora looked up from her station. Incoming message from the Emperor. He's requesting to speak with you directly. Suho accepted. Dagun's face appeared on screen, looking older and more tired than before. Captain Suho, the Emperor said formally, I wanted to inform you that I will be stepping down. A new government is being formed. A council with representatives from all member worlds, including the system that chose to stay. That's a significant change, Suho acknowledged. It's necessary. Dagon paused, then continued. I spent 2 centuries building an empire based on fear, on never being victims again. I see now that fear made us into something worse than our enemies. If we're to survive, to deserve survival, we need new leadership. Leaders who remember how to build rather than just conquer. What will you do? Suho asked. Retire. Try to make peace with what I've done. Maybe work on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission Hyejin is forming. Face the people I hurt. He smiled sadly. Not exactly the legacy I imagined. No, Suho agreed. But perhaps a better one than you earned before. Admitting mistakes and trying to fix them takes more courage than conquering. After the transmission ended, Suho stood and walked to the viewport. Below, Velthar turned slowly, its cities glowing in the darkness. Prepare the fleet to depart, he ordered. Our work here is done. Sir, should we leave observers? Bora asked. No, they chose to change. They did the work. Now they need to prove they can sustain it without us watching over them. He smiled slightly. Besides, we have 47 other species approaching critical points. The galaxy needs gardeners, not conquerors, and humanity has a lot of gardens to tend. The Taehyun and 4 other human ships that had been hiding throughout the sector began their departure. They slipped away as quietly as they'd come, leaving no trace except in memory. On Velthar, Yuna stood in the same plaza where she'd frozen mid-sentence weeks ago. She was broadcasting again, but the message was different. Today marks the beginning of something new, she told her viewers. We were given a choice. We could have refused to change, could have fought to stay as we were. Instead, we chose the harder path. We chose to be better. This is just the beginning. The real work lies ahead. But for the first time in centuries, I'm proud to be Veltharian. Not because of our strength or our empire, because we found the courage to change. Above, the human ships vanished into the dark, but their lesson remained, a gift more valuable than any technology. The knowledge that even empires built on fear and conquest could transform into something worth believing in again.